Oh, okay.
Good afternoon. We're convening the Committee on Transportation and Culture and the Arts and Water and Land on our 3 p.m. joint agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. We have one bill on the agenda today, Senate Bill 2226, relating to traffic regulation, which authorizes each county to adopt ordinances to regulate or restrict access to certain streets, highways, or thoroughfares. And testifying first is the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Rob Hoff at Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Wildlife. And apologize for the late testimony, but we do support this bill and have a few brief comments. We do definitely support giving the counties this enhanced ability to restrict access when needed to either protect the public from hazardous conditions or to prevent impacts to natural and cultural resources. We also appreciate the language in there to consult the LNR and to hold public hearings prior to approving. And finally, we just note that pedestrian access across these roads should be exempt from this legislation.
So just vehicles.
Correct, vehicular.
Thank you. All right, signed up to testify next is Hawaii County Council Chair Heather Kimball.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, thank you. In support. And then Hawaii State Association of Counties.
Not present either on Zoom, Chair.
All right, that's everyone we had signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure this afternoon? If not, are there any questions? All right, if not, thank you. We're gonna recess for decision making. All right, good afternoon. We're reconvening the Joint Committees on Water and Land and Transportation and Culture and the Arts on our 3 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224 on Senate Bill 2226 relating to traffic regulation. Chairs having conferred, I would like to move this measure forward with amendments. Just adopting the amendments from testimony that would limit the application of this measure to vehicles, so restricting vehicles, but still allowing pedestrians and other other uses, and then putting a defective date on the measure as it goes on for further consideration. Any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
Okay, for the Committee on Transportation, Chair's recommendation is to pass SB 2226 with amendments. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Elefante.
Aye.
Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
No.
Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
That's me. Okay, for the Committee on Water and Land, Chair's recommendation to pass SB 2226 with amendments. Any discussions, Water and Land Committee? Hearing none, Vice Chair for the vote, Chair goes aye.
Okay, Chair's recommendations to pass SB 2226 with amendments. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Chang. Aye. Senator McKelvey is excused. Senator Favela.
Aye.
Madam Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us out of our 3 o'clock agenda. For everyone who is patiently waiting in the audience, I'll note we have our joint 302, a joint 303, each with one bill. We have for TCA committee, our regular 305 agenda, and then we have decision making on 2 agendas. So we're going to be quite efficient today. So thank you for your patience. So that takes us out of our 3 o'clock. Up next will be the 302. So we'll be turning it over to the Waterland Committee.
We gotta wait for TV.
Okay.
Oh, we're just waiting.
No, we just closed out the. All right, good afternoon. We're reconvening the Committee on Transportation and Culture and the Arts for decision-making on our 3:01 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. These are measures that were previously heard last week. Up first is Senate Bill 3348 relating to transportation, which originally blanked out the state registration fee and state vehicle weight tax amounts. We'd like to move this forward, though, taking out the registration fee and vehicle weight tax language, and pursuant to some of the discussion with the testifiers and the counties in the last meeting, you just want to make it a data collection bill. So basically, in order to make it easier for courts to address ultimately some of the other bills moving that would address driving without a license or placing a lien on a vehicle in some situations, or really assessing where we're at with fees. We want to just provide authority to the Register of Vehicles to develop means to identify additional data about vehicle registration, such as approximate original value of each make or model vehicle in the database based on things like original MSRP or sale price or other similar information, and just require this to be incorporated into the registration database.
But, so no fee increase?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
because that's my issue. No increase in taxes. Okay.
Any other
Okay, so
discussion?
just to
Oh,
make sure.
Is this the first time that they're actually doing, or will be collecting this type of data?
As I understand, well, at least speaking with Honolulu County, it seems to be the case. Anyone
Is this
else?
only for Honolulu?
No, it
Does
applies
say-
statewide.
Applies statewide, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Vice Chair.
Okay. Chair's recommendation on SB 3348 is to pass with amendments. Okay, Vice Chair for the vote, Chair Lee.
Aye.
Okay. Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Elefante.
Aye.
Okay, Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
Aye.
What motion is adopted, Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 3287 relating to towing companies, which changes fees that a towing company may charge for various things and requires some to maintain certificates of good standing. We'd like to move this forward with amendments, blanking out all the fees. Secondly, adopting the consumer protection amendments, which would remove the addition of the certificate of good standing. And then thirdly, put in language saying companies engaged in towing or parking management may charge a maximum of blank amount for the placement or removal of any device upon a vehicle designed to immobilize it. And then adding in a defective date so this can get onto the next committee for further consideration, where consumer protection is probably better equipped with jurisdiction to address fees and things like that.
But there's going to be a fee anyway.
Well, there are fees currently. We're just blanking them out. Figure out what makes sense pursuant to the discussion that we had last week. And it's got a defective date on it.
Amendments, yep.
Yeah. So any discussion? Not.
Okay, Chair's recommendation to pass SB 3287 with amendments. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Vice Chair goes nay. Senator Elefante.
With reservations.
Okay. Senator Kanuta.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
No.
Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 2740. Actually, you know what? Why don't we recess, and since GVO is here with us, go into the GVO agenda.
Thank you.
So we're going to return to decision-making on the 3 p.m. agenda later on in this hearing. So for now, we're going to recess out of that. And
Thank you. Okay, thank you. The committees on Water, Land, and the Committee on Transportation and Cultural and the Arts, and our Government Operations Committee is going into its agenda of February 13th at 3:02 p.m. And just to remind everyone, particularly those in Zoom, you'll be limited to 1 minute. as well as announcing that the context, including the hearing notice, copies of the bill, and testimony can be found on our legislature's website. Decision-making will occur after this hearing. Members will proceed then with SB 2893, and this is relating to transportation. This is allows the Director of Transportation to exempt certain ground transportation facility projects from historic preservation review and the environmental impact statement law, subject to certain conditions. DOT. Okay. Ted Boland, testifying for Hawai'i Reef and Ocean Coalition. In opposition, Keone Shizuma, individual in opposition as well. Gina Gregory in opposition. Is there anyone else wishes to speak to SB 2893? Hearing non-members, any questions?
Question,
Senator Favela.
DOT. Just some clarification.
Yeah.
So only on the projects that previously is disturbed by DOT land excavated will not be deeper than 24 inches.
That's correct.
Historical district projects will not be exempt.
That's correct.
Okay. Last one, chapter 343 EISEA process will be triggered if DOT's project not DOT owned land.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So what can you do? So tell us which highways?
I think the
Roads in Nimbo?
no.
Okay.
I think the big areas we can consider for a bill like this would be areas where we had studied portions and we were moving forward on the project already. We find opportunities to expand the roadway in areas because we see fill in that area that we had constructed over in the past, where we can widen the facilities to provide more room for either lanes or bike lanes or pedestrian facilities. So we're not looking at trying to build a new highway with this bill. We're trying to make sure that we can take advantage of what we have now with minimal impact to the environment and maximal impact to the public.
Senator Panuno.
Just a question, how you determine having a high probability for the presence of archaeological sites or burial sites? How would you distinguish between low, medium, or moderate, or high?
Yeah, we would work with SHIP-D because they have significant information down there already. And with our previous projects we have in the area, we pretty much know where we can assume there's high probabilities of impacting and very low probabilities. Like on Waimanalo side, in the Jalke sands in those areas, there's very high probability, even in the fill, that we would potentially impact EV. So we know in those areas we're not gonna try and use something like this. But in other areas where we know we have clays and the like that's been already disturbed, it's a very low probability based on the previous data.
Thank you, Chair.
Any further discussions? Hearing not, Angus?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, members, Chair's recommendation is to defer this indefinitely. And there are some concerns that I think would affect areas that is unforeseen. We don't know what the plans are for, so. Okay. All right, this concludes the joint hearing, a triple hearing for the 302 agenda.
Chris, you
want to
just roll right into the? Yeah. TCA-GVO. Good afternoon. We're convening the Joint Transportation, Culture and Arts and Government Operations Joint Committee on our 3:03 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224 for the purpose of hearing one bill, Senate Bill 2896, relating to public parking spaces. which requires parking spaces to accept credit cards in addition to cash. Testifying first on this measure is the Department of the Attorney General. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, chairs, vice chairs, and members of the committees. I'm Deputy Attorney Marjorie Lau, and our department has submitted written comments, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Next is the Department of Accounting and General Services. And that's all the written testimony we have, or excuse me, that's all the testimony we have signed up. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? If not, are there questions? All right.
Yeah, anybody?
Vice Chair?
Yes, anybody from county or the state? Well, that's not under,
That's not you.
that's not transportation. Well, the question I was going to ask chairs was that we noticed that many businesses are now changing from debit cards now. They're adding fees to it as well. But I was just wondering, and I've never seen anyone else, it's always credit card. So how are we going to collect cash? That's my question.
Oh, I think the bill only says that
It's-
private ones can continue to collect cash, right?
Oh, on the private guys.
Yeah. It just says they can continue to do it.
Okay.
It's not a bar against them continuing to do cash transactions.
Okay, well, that's good.
That's the way I read it. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. think
But I say
that
make the
answers-
counties do them anyway. They can accept Venmo.
So,
Okay, any further, oh,
yes,
Senator Sam Buenaventura.
so I have a question similar to Senator Inouye. My district relies a lot on cash and because a lot of them have bad credit. Can we require that they also accept cash? If we're gonna require them to accept credit and debit card?
No, nobody's here from the state to answer that.
Yeah.
So maybe put in the committee report.
Well, do we have the state? Do we have? Oh yeah, we pay fees. That's right, in our all of our garages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This goes on to consumer protection.
No. Wham.
Oh, wham. Yeah.
Well, it does say cash.
It
No,
looks like
but
a proviso
it
that
doesn't
provides.
require them. If we're gonna require them to collect, but this requires them to accept payment by credit card and debit card.
Well,
Okay, hold on.
there
Why
is a-
don't we
why
do
don't
this?
we just
If there's
add-
no other questions for testifiers, why don't we go into DM and then we can have a discussion about
Yeah,
it?
because I gotta roll.
Yeah. That works for
I
you
got
guys?
angry people next door.
I wanted to require accepting cash also.
Okay, okay.
What was that? No, I guess.
Whatever you want to do, Chair.
No,
Yeah.
I know, but then this bill will only require
This is
credit
not-
and debit.
So
And,
I'm just
but
gonna,
there's no
this
requirement
is
that
similar
they
to last
accept
year, so I
cash,
talked
so
to
there are
and the
no
counties are
parking
doing it right
spaces
now. So I'm just gonna change it to say for the counties we pay, just report on your progress.
Go downtown. No coins.
No, that's-
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, is that fine?
Go ahead and
Okay.
gavel us in and just say the same thing.
We're still gaveling?
Yeah, you're still-
Okay,
you're still-
my bad. You guys took me on a loop. Okay. Why don't we go to decision-making for the TCA-GVO
Yes.
3:03 PM agenda. A little bit out of order today. Okay, so up first is Senate Bill 2896 relating to public parking spaces. So based on the testimony, we'd like to make a recommendation. We know that there's counties and the state that are doing this conversion currently to ensure that there's flexibility to make it easier for local residents to pay however they feel. So we'd like to just add in only for the state and counties requirements, they just report annually on their progress. And that's all that will be in the bill as it relates to the state and counties, leaving the rest of the bill as is. And I think for the folks who are currently paying cash, to be absolutely clear, there's no restriction on continuing to do that. And we'll throw in the committee report consideration for the next committee to look at, since we don't have any of the actual departments or counties here before us right now, to look at whether or not there's any issue with us requiring cash going forward, or if that makes sense. Sound okay?
Yes. committee report to look into also requiring cash,
Right,
because
right.
there are a number of current parking meters that do not accept cash,
Right. Okay,
which discriminates against those with no credit.
Vice Chair.
For the Committee on Transportation and Culture and the Arts, Chair's recommendation to pass SB 2896 with amendments. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Elafante.
Aye.
Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
Aye.
Measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Committee on Government Operations, same recommendation, Senate Draft 1.
Okay, so for SB 2896, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Senator Gabbard, excuse. Senator myself, Joyce San Buenaventura, aye. Senator Wakai. Yes. Senator Awa.
Aye.
Chair recommendation has been adopted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a new, this is 305.
Good afternoon. We're convening the Committee on Transportation, Culture, and the Arts on our 3:05 PM agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. We have a number of bills on the agenda this afternoon. Appreciate everyone's patience while we got through our joint agendas. Seeing as we want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to testify, we're going to be limiting everyone's testimony to 1 minute. Make sure everyone has a chance. And we'll be going into our 2 other agendas for decision-making thereafter for folks who are waiting for that. So that being said, up first on the 3:05 PM agenda is Senate Bill 2178 relating to roads, which allows for a percentage of the GE and fuel taxes generated by counties to be used for maintenance of private roadways that are open to the public. Testifying first is the Department of the Attorney General. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. Deputy Attorney General Winston Wong on behalf of the department. We've submitted written comments and testimony on this bill. Basically 2 concerns, the first of which is that existing language prohibits the use of certain funds for maintenance of public roadways that were in existence prior to 2005. This may be an unintended result where certain roads that are public don't get the funds that they need while private roads do. The second is just the absence of a purpose section in this bill. There is a constitutional requirement that if funds are allocated for public purpose, that it be stated that the public purpose is in the bill. So the absence of the purpose in this current bill as drafted could be alleviated by the insertion of one. I'll be available for questioning afterwards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your amendment.
Up next is the Tax Foundation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, chairs, senators. Tom Yamachika for Tax Foundation of Hawaii will stand in written comments, be available for questions.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers we had signed up for this measure. Is there anyone else wishing to testify this afternoon? What's the next bill? If not, are there any questions? All right, if not, thank you. Let's move on to the next measure. Senate Bill 3183 relating to the road usage charge program, which provides authority for a county to impose a mileage-based road usage charge and makes other amendments. And testifying first is the Department of Transportation. Thank you. Up next is the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Commissioner for the Hawaii State Energy Office.
Thank you. Next is the Tax Foundation.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, aloha. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Tom Yamachika for Tax Foundation. Will stand in a written testimony, be available for questions.
Thank you. Up next is Hawaii Automobile Dealers Association. Good afternoon.
Aloha, Melissa Pavlicek for the Hawaii Automobile Dealers Association. In the past, we've expressed concerns about the statewide road usage charge, primarily about the timing and implementation. We're fully committed to promoting the state's energy goals and want to promote electric vehicle adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testimony we had in person signed up. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify in this measure? Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, and late testimony from City and County of Honolulu in support. Is there anyone else? If not, are there questions?
Question. For Ms. Pavlicek. Hi, good afternoon. You mentioned about timing and implementation. So does HADA have a recommendation of?
Well, our understanding is other states have not yet adopted a road usage charge, and we have worked collaboratively and heard presentations from DOT directly to the automobile dealers. But we just want to ensure that when we're being the 1.0, that we really don't unintentionally create a slight disadvantage to electric vehicle owners. So right now, I believe they can opt into the program. Eventually that will become a mandate, and we just want to ensure that they really feel the benefit of having an electric vehicle.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, there's no further questions. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the next measure on the agenda, Senate Bill 3002, making an appropriation to implement the recommendations of the Task Force on Mobility Management. And testifying first on 3002 is the Department of Human Services. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not going to be here in person. National Federation of the Blind.
James Cashel here, National Federation of the Blind, to stand on our written testimony in support.
Thank you. Donald Sakamoto?
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That's everyone who signed up to testify. Is there anyone else?
Sorry, Chair. DOT's testimony is going to be.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else wishing to testify? If not, any questions? If not, all right, thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the next measure on the 3:05 p.m. agenda. Senate Bill 2738 relating to transportation, which establishes a pilot program in collaboration with the counties to examine signalized intersections that are programmed to all crosswalk and pedestrian movement signs commencing before the green light is given to motor vehicles. Testifying first on 2738 is Department of Transportation. Thank you. Up next is the National Federation of the Blind. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Hawai'i Appleseed Center for Law and Economic Justice. In support, that's everyone who signed up to testify. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure?
Chair, sorry, will stand on testimony in support.
Thank you. All right, if there's no one else, are there any questions? Senator Elefante.
Yeah, questions for DOT. Thank you, Chair. The only question I have, Director Sniffen, is you mentioned about candidate intersections will be based on, various factors. Would that be in the same process as how the red light camera pilot rolled out in selecting 10 intersections?
It would be, well, not necessarily just the 10 intersections, but whenever we look at the intersections, we would consider the volumes, the turning movements and the like. For instances, if we have areas with large left turn movements, having a LPI may not be the best thing. It might be a lagging instead. Right. So those are the things that we just got to consider as we look at the different intersections.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. In your testimony, you had mentioned, I think it was $500,000 or so. Is that something that would need to be appropriated, or do you have access to funds already?
Oh, I'd love it appropriated. But if we got to use our funds, we got to use our funds.
And then lastly, is there a timeline for what you guys are looking at?
For the upgraded signals?
Yeah, or just doing these however many intersections.
Yeah, so I don't have it in front of me. I'll get it to you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, if there's no further questions, let's move on to Senate Bill 2308 relating to speeding, which establishes additional fines in school zones. And testifying first is the Department of Transportation.
Strong support.
Thank you. And Hawaii State Department of Education. In support, that's all the testimony we have. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify? If not, any questions? On 2308, okay. If not, let's move on to Senate Bill 21111. Excuse me, 2111, relating to motor vehicles, which limits the payment of any delinquent tax and penalty required by counties as a condition to transferring ownership of a vehicle if it hasn't been registered for a long time. And testifying first is nobody signed up to testify. Is there anyone wishing to testify in person on this measure? All right, if not, seeing that there's no questions, or no one to ask questions of, let's move on to the next measure, Senate Bill 2855, relating to motor vehicle insurance, which clarifies you drive motor vehicle insurance policy requirements. And testifying first on 2855 is DCCA.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and board members who are testifying on the TCA insurance.
Thank you. Up next is Avis Budget Group. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Lori Lum on behalf of Avis Budget Group. We are in opposition to this bill. Avis Budget Group should not be placed in the position of having to provide primary insurance coverage, as the bill suggests. Avis Budget, we do maintain the state financially required insurance, and we believe we should continue to remain in a position to provide the coverage when there's no other valid and collectible insurance available. Historically, this has been the standard for the industry, and any increase in rates at this time is unwarranted. Most renters do have personal automobile insurance, and in the cases where the renter has no valid and collectible insurance, we do provide the coverage up to the state financially responsibility, up to the state requirements that we're responsible for. So again, the standard of rental cars has been in place for decades without any issues about claims handling. Obviously, we pay our claims appropriately, and there's no indication that the system doesn't work. And thus, we believe there's no change to restructure the entire insurance model for the industry. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Up next is Enterprise. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Matt Sujimura on behalf of Enterprise Mobility. We'll echo the sentiments of Avis Budget, but I do just want to point out that the insurance structure for the rental motor vehicle industry has long been decided through negotiations between all parties, including rental motor vehicle companies, insurance companies, regulators, to ensure that the rental car business model provides for the maximum protections that are allowed or that are required, as well as ensuring that there are no coverage gaps in that model throughout the entire business, whether the car is on the lot, the car is being rented, or wherever that car may be. Enterprise Mobility also has concerns that effectively what this language would do would be to put the rental car industry on par with the peer-to-peer industry, while outwardly facing the business model is very similar in the sense that cars are being put in the hands of customers. We do have very strong concerns that effectively, again, while the appearance is that they're very similar, the underlying structure of the business model between a rental car company and a peer-to-peer company is fundamentally different in the fact that the rental car industry owns the vehicles that which they rent. So that's where there are no gaps there because of their insurance coverage that is applied. The same cannot be necessarily said for a peer-to-peer car, as there are multiple different factors that go into that. So we do just have that concern as well, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is the Hawaii Association for Justice.
Evan Oy on behalf of HHJ was in support of this measure.
Thank you. And Turo. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Well, Chair, Vice Chair, other committee members, Davin Oyagi with Turo. I think for the most part, we'll stand on our testimony and support. The main thing that we just want to underscore is, again, we're just emphasizing parity here. And in this case, you can have a tourist come down from a neighbor island or out of state, and essentially what they'll do is get in a vehicle. It could be the same make and model. It could be the same roads, but they are covered under vastly different insurance amounts despite having the same exact risk profile. So we support this measure. We believe that parity is important, and I'm available to answer any questions as it comes up. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testimony we have on 2855. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in this measure? Anyone else excited by insurance policy? Okay, if not, are there any questions?
Yeah, Turo again.
Thank you.
I think this didn't we introduce this measure years ago that it became into the HRS system because of all you guys, right? Because this measure before us is an amendment to the HRS, but I think we created this HRS bill, it became law because of Turo and the rest of all of you, aside from the rental car agencies.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Vice Chair. To respond to your question, I think what this bill would essentially do is just apply the same standards that have been set aside for peer-to-peer as it pertains to its insurance regulations and offer parity as it pertains to rental car companies. And that includes the state minimums insurance, of which peer-to-peer is currently set at 4 times the state minimums, and it includes primary as well, of which peer-to-peer is the primary insurer.
Okay, going back to what we all pay if we rent from a rental car perspective. There's a whole bunch of fees, which also includes fees that the rental car companies pay for infrastructure improvements, such as our new airport parking garage, Maui's garage, Kauai, as well. Does Turo and the rest of those under the same, I guess, as Turo, do you folks pay those other fees that the rental cars pay?
Vice Chair, just to provide some clarification there, we do pay similar fees as it pertains to things like the rental motor vehicle surcharge tax, right? We do not pay the same fees as it pertains to the CONRAC specifically. As you know, Vice Chair, the CONRAC is also not just a place where traditional rental car companies can park their fleets. It's also a place where it provides office space. It provides, other things that are I think, important to the traditional rental car model. Although, to also be candid, I can't speak to their model necessarily as well as the representatives from the rental car companies can.
And I think recently, I'm not sure, but maybe the rental car folks can add, in the past couple of years, we've added something else other than the CONRAC fees. Because if you look at the receipts that we all have, if you rent a car, you can see a lot of the items. So can you come up, and if somebody's real familiar what you pay? And I know time. Thanks, Devin.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. So without having the exhaustive list of all the different fees that there are there, I can tell you that right off the bat, when it comes to the airports, in addition to the standard rental car surcharge taxes, as well as all of the other, all of the other standard fees, I think the latest ones that have been included on there are both a rental car surcharge increase, so the RMV surcharge increase, which was implemented a couple years ago.
And I think I remember that because I've heard complaints from our constituents, but also people from Maui when they come to Oahu, and they had to then, if they couldn't get home, they would have to rent a hotel room. And then I remember meeting this woman at Ala Moana, and she was just exhausted with all the fees that she was paying. On top of that, had to stay overnight because I don't know what happened to her schedules, but she sure made big complaints about all the fees that's added. But then with insurances, I don't think anybody wants to pay more to any insurance, whether that's in auto or at buying or increasing your coverages at your personal home or business or whatever. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? All right, if not, thank you, everybody. Let's move on to the last measure on our TCA agenda, Senate Bill 367 relating to consumer protection, which caps service charges for primary and secondary ticket sellers for concerts and such things. Testifying first is Office of Consumer Protection. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you. Mana Moriarty, Executive Director, Office of Consumer Protection, Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We have an outdated law in this area, Chapter 481B-15. We could use strengthening it. It would help consumers. Unfortunately, this particular bill has a lot of issues that we have to iron out. This particular bill limits the recourse available to a consumer from a primary seller, from the venue, to the service fees. So if the venue cancels, I don't know how likely that is, but if the venue cancels, all they have to give back to the consumer is the service fee. They don't have to give back the ticket price. If the event is canceled, StubHub has to, guess what, give back the full ticket price plus the service fee. We don't really understand why the disparate treatment here. We'd like to work with the stakeholders, try to come up with some improvements to the language that provide parity and provide for a better outcome for the consumers.
Thank you very much. And we have late testimony from Rick Bartolini presents in support. And that's everybody who had signed up to testify. Is there anyone else who are wishing to testify in this measure? If not, are there questions?
Yeah, was that Attorney General of DCC? Yeah, question. How do we identify those that are doing this business on the side and scalping? I mean, how do we control that?
I'm not sure anybody's come up with a good way to do that, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's here or elsewhere.
Okay. It's kind of interesting because this measure, I mean, I think there's a benefit for this bill, but I'm just wondering how can we control it? Or what's the issues?
Yeah, we'd love to understand the issues a little bit better too. I think we need to start a conversation with the StubHubs and the SeatGeeks, the secondary sellers who are operating at a high volume. We need to have the primary sellers in the conversation too, the venues, the promoters. We need to get a better feel for where the high volume transactions are and how we can better attack that. We understand that there are differing viewpoints. The promoter or the venue doesn't have the same interest that the secondary market has. So we need to get a feel for that. There are some other issues here too. And we just think this could benefit from a little bit more time.
Can you control a marketer or a venue? As an example, Tom Moffett, was a big promoter. We went all to his venues here on Oahu. But as an example, so if he brings in this venue, then any tickets that's out there in the market, could he control and say that only tickets that's paid by credit card, whether there's a scalper out there or whatever, turns in the resources or the monies that if he has 50 tickets to sell, then how does he pay to the promoter? Can that be managed? Or is that something that an attorney general would have to respond to?
Yeah, I'm not sure the answer.
Because that's all private, yeah.
It's private. I would hesitate to say it's outside the legislature's
I like
ability.
the bill, but I'm just wondering how can we control that?
So let me maybe point you to one provision in here, which is an interesting one. It's section 10, which says essentially that a primary ticket seller can impose restrictions on the consumer's ability to resell. So the primary could, in theory, put out there a prohibition on resale, and it could have a cause of action against the consumer. That's an interesting and problematic provision from our point of view. But, again, I think we'd want to try and understand a little better where the intent is here. Do we want a resale market? Do we want a secondary market? And how robust, what controls? Those are important issues.
Can we do something like that? No resale on a ticket once purchased if it's in our state?
I would, for that I would defer to the Department of the Attorney General because there are constitutional issues concerning imposing a limitation on existing contractual rights. I think if there was something going forward, you probably get outside the realm of the constitutional issues, something that's prospective rather than retroactive.
And your testimony was what?
Concerns. Concerns about this measure.
But I guess it's a stab at what we're doing now. As I mentioned, I kind of like the bill because we know it happens as well. Okay, it's going to consumer protection. Yep, thank you so much.
Senator Kanuha.
Thank you, Chair. I know previously you said you need to have this conversation. Have you started that conversation with all these events people, and whether this bill moves or not? That's, if you haven't had that conversation yet, if this bill moves or doesn't move, are you going to have the conversation? How long is it going to take to have that conversation?
Well, I think my predecessor before my time had some of those conversations, and I'm sure many people are familiar with some of the consumer issues that came up with Bruno Mars coming to town. We haven't had another big live event like that, in recent times. I would say we'd like to have that conversation, but we need to understand, we need to get in the room. But this, it's tough to just come in now with a time crunch and say, look, we got to bang something out because we might not get it right. Honestly, operating under the pressures of session right now. And we don't want to put something on the books that is going to be difficult to enforce and it's not going to make a difference.
Yep. Thank you, Chair.
Other questions? Since you're there, one of the things building on, I think, some of the discussion that we've been having on this, reading through the testimony, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to take a look at it, from Rick Bartolini Presents, which is, I believe, one of our local concert promoters, which suggests to basically limit the scope of this to the provision that you had mentioned, which was resale, saying, for resale, you can't go jack up all the prices and scalp and all of that. And I would imagine that'd be prospectively to your point that you're raising. Is that something that raises any, or can we have a discussion around that, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because you're sort of eliminating some of the issues with like speculative ticket sales, which is the situation when you don't have the ticket, but you agree to go out and the vendor agrees to go out and purchase it. It doesn't get into some of the other issues. It's still a concern that the measure right now as drafted provides, it's a venue favorable measure. It's a venue / promoter favorable measure. And do we want to have the resale market treated differently and less favorably than the venues? If so, for what reasons? I'm not sure I fully understand that piece yet.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, further questions? If not, all right, thank you. That's the end of our 3:05 p.m. agenda. So what we'll do for the folks who are patiently waiting, we'll go into decision-making on this agenda. And then, as I mentioned before, we have decision-making to continue on our, I believe, 3 p.m. agenda, and then our 3:01 p.m. agenda, and then our 3 p.m. agenda on a number of measures that were previously heard in this committee earlier last week. So with that, let's recess for decision-making. All right, good afternoon. We're reconvening the Senate Transportation and Culture and Arts Committee for decision-making on our 3:05 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. Up first is Senate Bill 2178 relating to roads, which allows for a percentage of general excise and fuel taxes generated by the counties to be used for maintenance of private roadways open to the public. I'd like to recommend moving this forward with amendments addressing the Attorney General's concerns. So we'll add in a preamble clearly stating that this can be done when it's in the public interest to improve and maintain private roadways that serve the public, in those limited circumstances, and then add in an effective date to see if we can get some agreement on this. So any discussion? If not, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation on SB 2178 to pass with amendments. Chair Lee.
Aye.
Vice Chair goes aye. Senator Elafante.
Aye.
Senator Kanuha. Okay, Senator Awa is excused. Motion is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 3183 relating to the road usage charge program, which provides authority for counties to switch over to the mileage-based road usage charge program. I want to recommend moving this forward with amendments. Obviously, last year we changed the law on the state side to move to a mileage-based user fee. So this would amend the same for the counties, or allow them the same mechanism for their portion of all the fees and whatnot that they raise to maintain roads. But we'd like to make some tech amendments. And secondly, we'd like to adopt the Metropolitan Planning Organization and proposal recommendations to add pedestrian walkways to section 3, subsection 7, and also replicate section 3 of 249-18 and 248-9, and strike restrictions in 248-9C that limit expenditures to capacity projects, which would provide more flexibility for both the departments and counties in implementing all the different safety and other changes that need to be done out there. And then finally, we'd like to clarify the definition of motor vehicles to which this whole thing applies. So any discussion? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Chair's recommendation on SB 3183 to pass with amendments with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes, hearing none, vote. Motion is adopted, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 3002, making an appropriation to implement the recommendations of the Task Force on Mobility Management. I'll note the funding in this is already blanked out in the existing bill. This goes on to Ways and Means, so we'd like to recommend passing as is.
Chair's recommendation on SB 3002 to pass unamended with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Motion is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 2738 relating to transportation, which establishes a 3-year pilot program in DOT to rethink crosswalk timing. We'd like to move this forward with amendments, adding in $599,000 for a 3-year program with a legislative report due prior to the 2027 session. And that is, we'd like to add in a reference to some of the automatic pedestrian walk signals, new technologies that are out there, and give some flexibility to DOT. So any discussion around that? If not, Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation on SB 20. Are we on 2308? Is that correct?
2738.
2738. Okay. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Is to pass with amendments, was that correct?
Yes.
Okay. With 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any aye votes? Okay. Any nay votes? Motion is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 2308 relating to speeding, which establishes additional fines in school zones. I'd like to recommend passing as is. There's no discussion, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay. Chair's recommendation on SB 2308 is to pass unamended with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Hearing none, motion is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 2111 relating to motor vehicles, which basically makes it easier to re-register your vehicle after a long period of not using it. We'd like to move this forward, just making tech amendments. Any discussion? Not?
Chair's recommendation on SB 2111 is to pass with amendments with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Hearing none, Vice Chair, Chair, measure is adopted.
Thank you. Up next is Senate Bill 2855 relating to motor vehicle insurance, which clarifies U-Drive motor vehicle insurance policy requirements. I appreciate the discussion around this. We have another bill that we've already moved out to the Consumer Protection Committee, which looks at all insurance levels. So I'd like to work with the stakeholders on that as it proceeds, but for the meantime, defer this measure. And then finally, Senate Bill 367 relating to consumer protection, which caps service charges for ticket sales. Similarly, we'd like to move this forward with amendments, adopting the recommendations of one of the testifiers that focuses the measure solely on or focuses it around limiting the resale of tickets to the original price and variable sales by the original seller. And then we'll throw on a defective date, tech amendments and a defective date so that we can continue the discussion and see where this goes this year in partnership, hopefully with some input from DCCA and other stakeholders.
Chair's recommendation on SB 367 to pass with amendments with 4 members present, any voting with reservations, any no votes. Hearing none, Vice Chair Lee, a motion is adopted.
Thank you. That's the end of our 3:05 p.m. agenda. Take just a quick pause for a minute and then go into decision making on our other 2 agendas, which are carryovers from before. Recess. Okay, we're reconvening the Transportation, Culture, and Arts Committee on our decision-making 3:01 p.m. agenda. We here in State Capitol Conference Room 224. We previously heard these measures another day. We had already been through voting on a couple of these about an hour ago. So we are now on Senate Bill 2740 relating to mopeds. I'd like to turn to this measure because there's another one that we'd already voted on, so we'll be deferring this measure. Moving on to Senate Bill 3012 relating to motor vehicle safety inspections, which lengthens the time period in which certain vehicles must have a safety inspection. Similarly, I appreciate the testimony on this, but just citing the safety concerns and opposition, we'll defer this measure as well. Moving on to Senate Bill 3237 relating to agriculture, which facilitates the, and by the way, for the record, this was joint with the Agriculture and Environment Committee. So we're just voting as a standalone committee right now. They've already voted on this. Senate Bill 3237 relating to agriculture, which facilitates the control and eradication of invasive species and pests. I'd like to pass this with amendments, adopting the AG's amendments, adopting the Coordinating Group on Alien Pest Species amendments, and adopting Department of Agriculture amendments. So discussion?
Yeah, one
Vice
second.
Chair.
Is this the one, the big island guys, the ag industry was against? This is the invasive one. The industry was, the floral industry were against this measure. Big time, you know. Wait, I know if this is the one. Is this Jared's bill?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the one that the industry is against. It's gonna be pretty much devastating, I understand. Oh, do we have? We don't have, yeah, their
We'll take
testimonies
a
online.
quick recess.
Yeah.
All right, reconvening the Committee on Transportation, Culture, and Arts. On our decision-making agenda, we're on Senate Bill 3237 relating to agriculture. We'd like to defer this one to time certain this Thursday, the 15th, at 3:01 p.m. for decision-making. Okay, moving on to Senate Bill 2769.
What's the
30
time?
3:01 p.m.
You are muting you, you have a hearing, okay.
Moving on to Senate Bill 2769 relating to climate change, which requires state, county, private bus operators to upgrade to zero emissions buses. We'd like to move this forward, but with amendments, adopting the PUC recommendation, authorizing changes to their admin rules to comply. Secondly, applying this only to state and county buses, so not private industry buses, and then tech amendments. Any discussion? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Okay, so we're going from the top, right?
Let's on.
2740. Okay, you deferred.
We're on
and so-
2769.
Okay, 2769. Last but not least, Chair's recommendation on SB 2769 is to pass with amendments with 4 members present. Any voting with reservations, any no votes. Hearing none, motion is adopted, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Are we on that yet? Okay. All right, moving on to our 3 p.m. agenda, which is our last agenda for decision-making. These measures were previously heard in this committee last week. Up first is Senate Bill 3022 relating to transportation, which establishes a ride-sharing fee. We'd like to move this forward with amendments, acknowledging that there's going to be a lot of drivers going into unfamiliar neighborhoods, creating some potential safety issues. So we'd like to make amendments that would adopt the Metropolitan Planning Organization amendments, shifting the funds that this would raise to the Safe Routes to Schools Fund to provide better safety crosswalks, sidewalks, et cetera, for kids going to school. Secondly, blanking out the fee as this goes on to the Ways and Means Committee. Thirdly, adopting the DOE tax amendments, which would change rideshare to the existing definition of TNC, Transportation Network Company, and then defecting the date to January 1, 2050. Any discussion?
Yeah, the only concern that I have, I'll be voting in support with reservations. I'm just not knowing what the fee would be, but I do appreciate the amendments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair's recommendation on SB 3022 is to pass with amendments with 4 members present. Any voting with reservations?
Reservations.
Okay, for Senator Elefante. Vice Chair goes nay on this measure. I will call for the roll call on this measure, Mr. Chair. Vice Chair Lee. Okay, Vice Chair goes no. Senator Elefante
Aye,
with
with
reservations.
reservations.
And Senator Kanuha.
Aye.
Okay, measure is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Up next is Senate Bill 2641 related to traffic violations, which limits moving violations arising from the operation of a motor vehicle that appear on traffic abstracts to those that are actually based on convictions. We'd like to move this forward. This goes on to WAM Judiciary for further consideration, but we'd like to pass it, defecting the date to January 1, 2050.
Okay. Chair's recommendation on SB 2641 is to pass with amendments with 4 members present. Any voting with reservations? Any no votes? Hearing none, Vice Chair Lee, motion is adopted.
Oh, thank you. Okay, moving on to the last measure on our agenda, Senate Bill 2617 relating to real property. This prohibits foreign principals from acquiring real property in a state. I'd like to move this on with amendments. I want to thank, I think, the numerous people who showed up to testify in this measure and take the time out of their day to do so and weigh in. Also want to thank the Attorney General's office and others who took time out of their day to weigh in, and we recognize and acknowledge there's a number of legal issues that need to be sorted out, but we'd like to keep this going for further discussion and figure out what actually could make sense. So we want to ask LRB to take a closer look into the laws that other states have passed on this measure or on this issue and come up with language for legislation that can legally work in a similar way. So we'll replace the provisions in this measure to direct LRB to conduct a review and analysis on how those state laws and existing constitutional precedents would inform demand-side regulations in the real estate market in Hawaii in favor of resident ownership, specifically owner-occupied resident ownership. And hopefully that'll give us some direction so that legally anything we do in the legislature and pass to help local residents have better access to property and restrict those who are from overseas would have a better opportunity to have that stand up in court. And finally, we'll we'll add in a defective date.
And these were the amendments made by CPM.
Right.
And agreeable. Okay. Chair's recommendation on SB 2617 to pass with amendments with 4 members present. Any voting with reservations? Any no votes? Motion is adopted, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, that is the last of our actual agenda. So really appreciate everybody's support as we just got through, I think, the last major day of bills for this committee, and we will adjourn.
And
Aloha.
see you.